The spring running. Man goes to man, cry the challenge to the jungle. He that was our brother goes away. Hear now and judge, O ye people of the jungle. Answer, who shall turn him, who shall stay? Man goes to man, he is weeping in the jungle. He that was our brother sorrows sore. Man goes to man, oh we loved him in the jungle, to the man trail where we may not follow more. The second year after the great fight with Red Dog and the death of Akela, Mowgli must have been nearly 17 years old. He looked older, for hard exercise, the best of good eating, and baths whenever he felt in the least hot or dusty had given him strength and growth far beyond his age. He could swing by one hand from the top branch for half an hour at a time. When he had occasion to look among the tree roads, he could stop a young buck in mid-gallop and throw him sideways by the head. He could even jerk over the big blue wild boars that lived in the marshes of the north. The jungle people who used to fear him for his wits feared him now for his strength. And when he moved quietly on his own affairs, the mere whisper of his coming cleared the wood paths. And yet the look in his eyes was always gentle. Even when he fought, his eyes never blazed as Bagheera's did. They only grew more and more interested and excited, and that was one of the things that Bagheera himself did not understand. He asked Mowgli about it, and the boy laughed and said, "When I miss the kill, I am angry. When I must go empty for 2 days, I am very angry. Do my eyes talk then?" "The mouth is hungry," said Bagheera, "but the eyes say nothing. Hunting, eating, or swimming, it is all one. Like a stone in wet or dry weather. Mowgli looked at him lazily from under his long eyelashes, and as usual, the panther's head dropped. Bagheera knew his master. They were lying out far up the side of a hill, overlooking the Waingunga, and the morning mists hung below them in bands of white and green. As the sun rose, it changed into bubbling seas of red gold, churned off and let the low rays stripe the dead grass on which Mowgli and Bagheera were resting. It was the end of the cold weather. The leaves on the trees looked worn and faded, and there was a dry tickling rustle everywhere when the wind blew. A little leaf tapped furiously against a twig as a single leaf caught in a current will. It roused Bagheera, for he snuffed the morning air with a deep hollow cough, threw himself on his back, and struck with his forepaws at the nodding leaf above. "The year turns," he said. "The jungle goes forward. The time of new talk is near. That leaf knows. It is very good." "The grass is dry," Mowgli answered, pulling up a tuft. "Even Eye of the Spring," that is the little trumpet-shaped waxy red flower that runs in and out among the grasses, "even Eye of the Spring is shut. And Bagheera, is it well for the Black Panther so to lie on his back and beat with his paws in the air, as though he were a tree cat?" "Oh," said Bagheera. He seemed to be thinking of other things. "I say, is it well for the Black Panther so to mouth and cough and howl and roll? Remember, we be masters of the jungle, you and I." "Indeed, yes, I hear, man cub." Bagheera rolled over hurriedly and sat up, the dust on his ragged black flanks. He was just casting his winter coat. "We be surely the masters of the jungle. Who is so strong as Mowgli? Who so wise?" There was a curious drawl in that voice that made Mowgli turn to see whether by any chance the Black Panther were making fun of him, for the jungle is full of words that sound like one thing but mean another. "I said we be beyond question the masters of the jungle," the Bagheera repeated. "Have I done wrong? I did not know that the man-cub no longer lay upon the ground. Does he fly, then?" Mowgli sat with his elbows on his knees, looking out across the valley at the daylight. Somewhere down in the woods below, a bird was trying over in a husky, reedy voice the first few notes of his spring song, in what it was no more than a shadow of a liquid, tumbling call he would be pouring later, but Bagheera heard it. "I I said the time of new talk is near, growled the panther, switching his tail. I hear, Mowgli answered. Bagheera, why dost thou shake all over? The sun is warm. That is Pharaoh, the scarlet woodpecker, said Bagheera. He is not forgotten. Now I too must remember my song. And he began purring and crooning to himself, harking back dissatisfied again and again. There is no game afoot, said Mowgli. Little brother, are both thine ears stopped? That is no killing word, but my song, that I make ready against the need. I had forgotten. I shall know when the time of new talk is here, because then thou and the others all run away and leave me alone. Mowgli spoke rather savagely. But indeed, little brother, Bagheera began, we do not always— I say ye do, said Mowgli, shooting out his forefinger angrily. Ye do run away, and I, who am the master of the jungle, must needs walk alone. How was it last season, when I would gather sugar cane from the fields of a man-pack? I sent a runner, I sent thee, to Hati, bidding him to come upon such a night and pluck the sweet grass for me with his trunk. He came only 2 nights later, said Bagheera, cowering a little, and of that long sweet grass that pleased thee so, he gathered more than any man-cub could eat in all the nights of the rains. That was no fault of mine. He did not come upon the night when I sent him the word. No, he was trumpeting and running, roaring through the valleys in the moonlight. His trail was like the trail of 3 elephants, for he would not hide among the trees. He danced in the moonlight before the houses of the man-pack. I saw him, and yet he would not come to me, and I am the master of the jungle. It was the time of new talk, said the panther, always very humble. Perhaps, little brother, thou didst not that time call him by a master word. Listen to Pharaoh and be glad. Mowgli's bad temper seemed to have boiled itself away. He lay back with his head on his arms, his eyes shut. I do not know, nor do I care, he said sleepily. Let us sleep, Bagheera. My stomach is heavy in me. Make me rest for my head. Make me a rest for my head. The panther lay down again with a sigh, because he could hear Pharaoh practicing and repracticing his song against the springtime of new talk, as they say. In an Indian jungle the seasons slide one into the other almost without division. They seem to be only 2, the wet and the dry, but if you look closely between the torrents of rain and the clouds of char and dust, you will find all 4 going round in their regular ring. Spring is the most wonderful, because she has not to cover a clean, bare field with new leaves and flowers, but to drive before her and to put away the hanging-on, over-surviving raffle of half-green things which the gentle winter has suffered to live, and to make the partly dressed stale earth feel new and young once more. And this she does so well that there is no spring in the world like the jungle spring. There is one day when all things are tired and the very smells as they drift on the heavy air are old and used. One cannot explain this, but it feels so. Then there is another day. To the eye nothing whatever has changed, when all the smells are new and delightful, and the whiskers of the jungle people quiver in their roots, and the winter hair comes away from their sides in long draggled locks. Then perhaps a little rain falls, and all the trees and bushes and the bamboos and mosses and the juicy-leaved plants wake with the noise of growing that you can almost hear, and under this noise runs, day and night, a deep hum. That is the noise of the spring, a vibrating boom which is neither bees, nor falling water, nor the wind in the treetops, but the purring of the warm, happy world. Up to this year, Mowgli had always delighted in the turn of the seasons. It was he who generally saw the first eye of the spring deep down among the grasses, and the first bank of spring clouds, which are like nothing else in the jungle. His voice could be heard in all sorts of wet, star-lighted, blossoming places, helping the big frogs through their choruses, or mocking the little upside-down owls that hoot through the white nights. Like all his people, spring was the season he chose for his flittings, moving for the mere joy of rushing through the warm air, 30, 40, or 50 miles between twilight and the morning star, and coming back panting and laughing, and wreathed with strange flowers. The 4 did not follow him on these wild rangings of the jungle. these wild ringings of the jungle, but went off to sing songs with other wolves. The jungle people are very busy in the spring, and Mowgli could hear them grunting and screaming and whistling according to their kind. Their voices, then, are different from their voices at other times of the year, and that is one of the reasons why spring in the jungle is called the time of new talk. But that spring, as he told Bagheera, his stomach was changed in him. Ever since the bamboo shoots turned spotty brown, he had been looking forward to the morning when the smells should change. But when the morning came, and Mor the peacock, blazing in bronze and blue and gold, cried it aloud all along the misty woods, and Mowgli opened his mouth to send on the cry, the words choked between his teeth, and a feeling came over him that began at his toes and ended in his hair, a feeling of pure unhappiness, so that he looked himself over to be sure that he had not trod on a thorn. Mor cried the new smells, and other birds took it over, and from the rocks by the Waingunga he heard Bagheera's hoarse scream, something between a scream of an eagle and the neighing of a horse. There was a yelling and a scattering of banderlog in the new budding branches above, and there stood Mowgli, his chest filled to answer Mor, sinking in little gasps of breath, little gasps as the breath was driven out of it by this unhappiness. He stared all round him, but he could see no more than the mocking banderlog scudding through the trees, and Mor, his tail spread in full splendor, dancing on the slopes below. "The smells have changed!" screamed Mor. "Good hunting, little brother! Where is thy answer?" "Little brother, good hunting," whispered Chill the kite and his mate, swooping down together, the two baffed under Mowgli's nose, so close that a pinch of downy white feathers brushed away. A light spring rain, elephant rain they call it, drove across the jungle in a belt a half-mile wide, left the new leaves wet and nodding behind, and dried out in a double rainbow and a light roll of thunder. The spring hum broke out for a minute and was silent, but all the jungle folk seemed to be giving tongue at once, all except Mowgli. "I have eaten good food," he said to himself. "I have drunk good water, nor does my throat burn and grow small as it did when I bit the blue-spotted root that the turtle said was clean food. But my stomach is heavy, and I have given very bad talk to Bagheera and others, people of the jungle and my people. Now, too, I am hot, and now I am cold, and now I am neither hot nor cold, but angry with that which I cannot see. Hoo-hoo! It is time to make a running. Tonight I will cross the ranges. Yes, I will make a spring running to the marshes of the north and back again. I have hunted too easily, too long. The four shall come with me, for they grow as fat as white grubs." He called, but never one of the four answered. They were far beyond earshot, singing over the spring songs, the moon and the sambar songs, with the wolves of the pack. For in the springtime the jungle people make very little difference between the day and the night. He gave the sharp barking note, but his only answer was the mocking meru of the little spotted tree cat winding in and out among the branches for early birds' nests, and at this he shook all over with rage, and half drew his knife. Then he became very haughty, though there was no one to see him, and stalked severely down the hillside, chin up and eyebrows down, but never a single one of his people asked him a question, for they were all too busy with their own affairs. And we will pause there.